Hello. Hmm. Can't really tell if I'm on or not.
All good. All right. Would you all please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
There.
Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. There, we've got a full contingent tonight, so it's like Josh is back.
I'm back.
Yep. He's been here behind the scenes. So before we get started, I'm going to call the Board of Assessors meeting to order in just a second. And I know there's a handful of folks online that are here for some license renewals. Just bear with us. We do have an assessors meeting that we've got to do first. And then once we get that done, I'll check with the board and maybe we can move them up on the agenda for official action items. So you guys can be patient with us and we'll go through the exciting assessors meeting. So, yeah. All right, with that, I'm going to call the Damariscotta Board of Assessors meeting to order for Wednesday, August 7th. And I believe we've got Rob, you're in here on, you didn't dare come in tonight, huh? You're hiding behind the camera?
That Route 1 traffic gets you every time.
Excuses, right? Yeah. Yeah. You can hear us all right and everything. We can hear you pretty well, so.
Okay, yeah, I can.
Okay. So I guess everybody get a chance to take a peek. We want to dive right into it and hit the high spots.
Sure. So
Let's
you
take
have
it
in
from
front of
here.
you three mill rate options. Basically, all that does is have different overlay figures for you. But the quick rundown would be the total valuation base for this year, including property that would be captured in the TIF, 423,859,000 and change. So that's the base in which we'll calculate our tax from. As far as appropriations, we have a lofty county tax at 630,896. Municipal budget of 4,053,318 change. The TIF is 23,186.12 cents. And school, $4,285,229.25, which brings us a gross appropriation total of $8,992,630.28, which, as we know, well, we'll get to the deductions first. So from that, we can reduce that gross by the following: state municipal revenue sharing, $209.21. And all other revenues, these are revenues that were decided on at town meeting, which would be excise, money from undesignated, but it doesn't include any homestead reimbursement or BETE reimbursement, which is calculated in a different manner. So $889,975 added into the state valuation figures gives us a total deduction of $1,214,184.21. So we are asking a net amount to be raised from taxation for this year of $7,778,446.07. And those numbers are the same through all three of our option sheets. And from those, so we take that $7,778,000 figure, we divide that into our total valuation base of $423,859,000 and change, and we get a range of mill rates here. You'll see minimum tax rate, maximum tax rate. So a minimum tax rate of $18.35.1 and a maximum tax rate of 19.269. So anything the board chooses between those two numbers will be a valid mill rate. Because remember, all we're talking about is capturing the overlay. And as long as the overlay that we capture is less than 5% of our net budget, we're all in the clear. Just for comparison, maximum overlay in this case is $388,922. Certainly, we don't need anything anywhere near that. So the three options we have in front of us to consider, starting with the low, we have an option of mill rate of 18.4. That constitutes an overlay of $20,636. The second choice, $18.45. Overlay goes up to $41,766. And the final option that I have to present to you is 18.5 with an overlay of $62,896.
Numbers aren't just.
They're not checking.
Yeah, can I just clarify, Rob? I mentioned in my email that I had sent out to the board a memo with the mill rates you and I had discussed, which were different from the 3 pages you sent me.
Okay.
We had talked about last week our overlays. The reason there's 3 scenarios for the overlay is because of the plow contracts that came in.
Right.
So the question is, do we want to kind of follow a more standard overlay that you've been used to, which is in the ballpark of 30 grand? Do you want to try and account for any of that change that's born really for this year, for that increased snowplow cost on this year's overlay? The difference that I tried to highlight in the memo would be you either go into next year knowing you got to raise $110,000 out of the gate, or you're trying to account for some of that 90,000 in this year in part at 50%, which was scenario 2, or scenario 3, which you cover all 90,000 in this year's mill rate consideration. And next year you're only paying for the FY26 increase. So our numbers that they've got, I've given that memo, are slightly different for mill rate options than what you had worked up and had shared with me.
Those are the most recent ones that we shared through email.
The one I had provided, I think, late Friday to you.
The 8-2. Oh.
I had
that was I said to you. Okay.
Yeah, you sent me something last week, and I had mentioned that those numbers aren't reflective of what we had talked about for the overlay goals.
Okay.
For the winter maintenance contract.
So the biggest concern is but my gross and net budget numbers are correct, right?
Yeah, I think it was $2 different.
Okay.
That I might have had
A little
but-
different.
There's a couple bucks there.
Yeah.
But
All right. So,
jive. Yeah.
but so it's just a matter of having different overlay options. Okay.
Right.
So I've got a couple questions if I can. The TIF district, because we changed the boundaries of the district. So the valuation of the TIF in 2024, what was that, Rob? Do you have any idea? And the TIF valuation in 2025?
Just pause for 1 second while he's looking that number up. The amendments are still being considered by the state.
So it
So
hasn't
this
been
mill
approved.
rate will not include that additional amended captured, footprint of all those other parcels.
So it has yet to be accepted. So like Hannaford and all those
Right.
ones,
Those
like,
ones are
it's
still
still
on the
gonna be
general
in.
base.
the
Yep.
general.
Okay.
And they will next year for the original assessed will still be like we see now, which is anything that's newly added that is increased that value is captured. So
Correct.
the base value for those will still be included on the overall. So that's still in review with the state. There was some back and forth with more information they wanted from us from our original application. And Michael, I think we're at a point where that's
Yeah, the only.
Finished.
All
assessors. Right.
Or the assessors, they do.
Right.
The final numbers say they're set.
Gotcha. Okay.
there was quite a list and Michael was good about being able to get through all that. So they're still considering that. So this, Rob, I don't know if you have the exact number. I think it was 900 something thousand last year.
Yes, last year was 909,600. And there was a bit of growth this year. The captured value we used to establish that TIF financing plan was 1,256,700.
And then
There
that will
was some
increase.
growth in the original TIF. There was some growth this year over the OAV, but the expanded capture will be all calculated for next year, like Andy said.
So that'll be in 2026 budget.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, the value that, like, say, the Hannaford lot has today stays with the general tax assessment. It's just if they were to do an addition between now and April
Right.
1st and they adds 50,000 in value, that 50,000 alone is what gets put into
extra
that
added value.
other line, the TIF account.
I was looking at that, what we were taking from the TIF, because I assume the 2025 thing was all ready to roll, so.
That was the hope.
So, and then
It
I
was,
looked
but-
at it, it was only $23,160 or somewhere around there, and I was like, that doesn't work for me.
Right.
You know?
Well, it came down to the conversations that we all had. It came down to that April 1st date. Everything in the state of Maine is governed by April 1st annually. So those the TIF had to be completely done and accepted prior to April 1st of 2024 for it to be allowed in this commitment. We had that same scenario a few years ago in Rangeley. So they're in the same boat that you are. Just they had to wait that 1 year, and then. But looking back, the starting value points for the expansion TIF does go back to prior to April 1st of 2023. So yeah, March 31st, 22. So even though the look back is 2 years, we're going to capture everything above and beyond what was there 2 years ago. We just can't do it yet because of approval was pending.
Rob, do you by chance have access to the sheet I sent, the packet, the board packet?
No, just the plow. No. It was-
So I don't believe is that the same email that you sent the link into for this meeting?
When I send the board pack, as I believe I included. Just because I had a memo worked out for him that showed kind of what the overlay value is, the mill rate per thousand, and then the three different, what it means for tax for properties assessed at 100, 364,000 and 750,000. So they can kind of see what that looks like. The 364,000 is kind of calling the average home value in town. Only, that's when we exported basically the commitment, you got the land and the building values. And I made an assumption that everything that had a land value and a building value was a home. There might be a few that aren't, but there's plenty of accounts that have just land or just building. And so I assume nothing of those ones. And there might actually be homes on properties, but either way, it was a little rough, but the quickest and easiest way without going kind of account by account or running the codes that they might have on the other end. So it puts it at about 364,000, if we call that the average assessed value.
I think I do have, Andy, we're talking about mill rates of 1843,
Yeah,
54 and
18.
64. Okay.
That's it.
Ooh, which none of them feel good, right?
No.
Well,
Maybe.
I'll say it.
Well, whatever you do is gonna be painful.
Yeah, I know.
It's probably better than passing it on.
It's pains that every town are going through this year.
But the reason is different for all the towns.
Yeah, it's all, I mean, it's based on budget and, yeah.
Why are people's budgets
so,
going up?
And like municipal revenue sharing changes
Revenue.
for each town every year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So ours went down a fair chunk.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so
School budget,
When,
Went up.
yeah, we added pre-K, so I guess when we go to talk about that, if we're getting any reimbursement from any programs through the state or the feds, and when will that come back in? Or if there is any. for
yeah,
those
I would
programs.
assume
State
if it was something that they knew they were getting, they would have likely have used it as enough revenue offset like we do, like revenue sharing.
Mhm.
We've taken, whatever the state tells us, they're projecting we're gonna get, we use. We did lose, and Rob, maybe you can help explain. I know I don't fully understand it. When you do revenue sharing, there's kind of like revenue one and revenue two. We lost the two, and I think that has to do with the relative value of our community over, the mill rate. And Rob, if you can help me explain that better.
Yeah, so
mill-
revenue sharing has always been based on, well, what the state perceives the towns need. It has a lot to do with the state's valuation. Median income for the town is folded in there, and population size is folded in there. So a lot of my towns along the water with a lower population, they did lose Rev 2 and did see a bit of a dip in their revenue sharing. So it all comes down to what the state perceives need for the town.
And how do they make that? What basis do they use?
There is a formula that is extremely long.
Mhm.
I can't even begin to. There is something on the state's website that shows how the breakdown is, but there's many factors that are in there, and it comes down to also they don't really know how much tax they collect from sales tax, lodging tax, and things like that to know how much to distribute. So like I said, the formula is very complicated, but the basics are what I mentioned.
So Rob, you said did you have a calculated rate at 18.5 in front of you?
Yes,
And what was the overlay on that?
18.5 was 62,896.
Okay, thank you.
Andy, yours is adjusted. So where those numbers don't jive, this one's adjusted for.
Well, I had mentioned what I was trying to present to the board was, again, that standard overlay, the consideration of trying to fund this year with the overlay for 50% of the value and then the full value. So
Yeah,
pick
so
a
where you
number
have,
anywhere in between if you want as well, but
Yeah.
kind of more of a point of conversation for you all is, do you want to try and capture any of that cost that we're facing for this year's budget in this year's mill rate,
yeah,
or deal with it all, the $110,000 for next year's budget process right off the top?
I think we need to start to put some money away and not have a big hit.
Well,
Smaller chunks are going to be easier to handle.
Well, the only offset
bigger.
to that is that we got this big jump this year, and the jump is not likely to be as great next year. We sort of lost in the shovel, but maybe something in the middle, 50% of the hit. But I think we ought to do more than zero.
That's what that second kind of table there kind of is trying to show you a little bit at those different mill rates and those different property values, what that, so what 10%, what 10 cents more from the 1843 looks like
Mhm.
across those different property values.
well, I appreciate the comparison numbers so I can actually look at it and be prepared. But
Exactly.
I do feel for the people that are in the monthly tax program that are paying their taxes every month, that pretty nervous about what's gonna happen here.
Mhm.
So, and I think I've told you, Andy, I'd like to just split that for this year and make things work next year. So
So are you suggesting the middle number?
I was thinking the middle one or the Rob's 18.5,
Which is,
18.5,
which is
yeah.
about the same.
which is about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, and
I think
I
that's,
think that makes
that's
sense.
what I'm feeling. I mean, reasonable. Yeah, it's just so hard to, we have to go up. But it's,
I don't think we
Yeah.
can do more than that.
no,
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 yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
hits everybody and,
Yeah.
I've told Daryl I was sick to my stomach for the last
Hmm.
2 days thinking about.
Well, when you got the packet and started,
just-
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first one that has
Jump.
really bothered me.
Yeah.
yeah, well, it's
Well, it's a big
historically, I mean, and I do like the breakdown if we have the
Yeah.
chart here with the,
I think
with
this
the
is,
flow here and,
Yes.
I think it's important though to understand that the three biggest hits this year or next year are really quasi or non-discretionary. You got the school.
school is a big one.
You got
But
the
school's
police-
not gonna
police
ever go down.
contract, and then you got the highway contract for plowing, and that is quasi discretionary because you only had two bidders, and one of them was higher than the one we accepted. And we have to have it done. So there wasn't any other option. really.
Yeah.
I think too, I mean, there's the increases that, you kind of have operating and costs just generally go up every year. I mean, you can assume maybe 2 to 3% maybe, but
Right.
historically, but I think like that chart there, that figure two, where it shows annual appropriations going back to 2018. I can't speak exactly to what both the school and the town did, but it appears on the graph alone that, it happened to coincide with COVID. And I'm imagining a lot of towns did the same thing, as the uncertainty with how COVID was going to impact the economy and taxes and people's ability to do things. It looks as though spending was cut way back during those couple of years.
well, also the school's got a bunch of money too, right?
We've kind of climbed out of that, catching up. You guys have made a significant effort to try and increase your funding to reserve accounts, up $200,000 from what it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I know the school had explained how they were utilizing some of the COVID money to try and minimize the impacts to those
Right.
taxpayers during that time. But if they found yourself paying for any operating expense out of that revenue that wasn't going to continue forever, you're kind of a double whammy at this point.
Mhm.
Let's not forget inflation,
Right.
was built in there. It's, quasi related to COVID, but not, not in the last couple of years.
So I guess I would make a motion to go with Rob's number of 18.5. Start there.
1 second.
Thank you. Josh, got a motion, Tom seconded. Any, more discussion on that? So the motions are 18.5 for the mill rate.
Mhm.
Hearing, no more.
And I'm not loving that number.
Oh, no, I,
kidding.
it's, yeah, I think we're gonna vote on
Terrifying.
this in,
Oh, my God. Sorry.
yeah, under duress here. So, I'll call for a vote on that. All those in favor of, favor is the wrong word. But, all those in favor of an 18.5 mill rate? Yeah, is that,
Must go on.
yeah,
you know.
and I'd like to say we all oppose it as well, but I don't think we can do that legally. So, yeah, that's a big jump.
Have we
knew
ever
it was
had
coming.
one this big?
Not
Like in any one year, probably.
No, yeah, it's been, I mean, I don't know, Josh knows better since I've been on. You've been in the 15, 16 range. In fact, it went down.
If-
Went down after we did the revow years ago.
Yeah. So,
If that's
yeah.
our true history,
I think it's important just to acknowledge that following the actual mill rate that's been selected isn't really a good measure per se of the tax impact, because it is tied to your property value. And so just know there's a lot more into it than just trying to compare. If we're trying to compare how we stand as a mill rate to other towns, it is a benchmark, but it's not.
Right.
There's a lot buried in there.
Yeah, there's nuances to it.
I think understanding like.
It's still a big number. So
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Where Rob was talking before, kind of the first part there, the taxable value, our bottom number we're trying to levy and raise against is that 423 million.
Yeah.
And we know that's higher. We're talking revals on
Reval.
discussion next, but and so with a change in reval, knowing what you all probably had a pulse or seen where property values are on the market at the moment, relative to what we're assessing them at. And so, You know, if your expenses don't change and you go through a reval and say all your values are double what we've been assessing, I'm not saying they should be, but just if they were, right, you're gonna have a huge change in your mill rate. So it's sometimes hard as the only benchmark to follow. You know, with Michael, you know, talking about like the comp plan and plan development in the future, you know, how do we keep our expenses in line relative to the bottom number and making sure that we aren't trying to grow? That's why there's, you know, the LD1 was there to try and minimize how much of an increase towns have each year is, you know, in relation to your growth. And when you don't have much development going on, but your expenses continue to rise, it
Yeah.
does make it harder.
Right.
Hard to
So there's
offset.
a lot buried into that number, and I know it's an easy benchmark for people to grab a hold of. But
So Rob, where do we stand with non-taxable valuation? What is our number for this year?
And in regards to exempt property, you mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I
Mm, That's a good question.
didn't prepare for that. We were just
Okay.
talking mill rate, so.
Oh, that's
I
fine.
can,
Just
okay,
wanted
what I can do is, for your next meet, tonight's the commitment night officially. At your next meeting, I'll have the, commitment papers for you to sign. And with those commitment papers, I will give you an audit of all the exempt property.
Yeah, that'd be great, Rob.
That'd be
Thank
good.
you. Yep.
You know, I just hope we don't keep adding more.
Yeah.
Well, there are pilots you could negotiate with people, right?
all voluntary.
Voluntary.
But
Trying to have a sidebar
exert
conversation, but I
pressure.
can't.
Sorry.
Yeah. If you get a question, ask it right out there, because we've got Rob right on the, so what were you trying to?
So my question is, so our mill rate is going up and our houses are going to be reassessed as to their value.
Mhm.
So both of those things are happening at the same time.
We haven't started a reval yet.
Okay, so this year, the mill rate's going up.
Mhm.
But in the next couple of years, people will expect to see their property evaluation go up.
That's
Likely.
Most likely with the rebound, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then most
think there's a
likely the
share.
mill rates will go down as a result of that, even though that the amount they pay in taxes,
Okay,
all other things being equal, shouldn't
Yeah.
change.
okay,
It's gotta-
That-
yeah.
okay.
The $7.778 million budget that we have this year, that set the mill rate at 18.5. If we had a revaluation and all properties double, hypothetically, and our budget stayed the same, the mill rate would be half of this 18.5.
Okay,
So that would be, so the burden shift that one may see in a revaluation would be a class of property that would inflate at a higher rate than another class of property. Waterfront as opposed to non-waterfront, commercial, non-commercial. Different classes of property can be affected by the market differently. So when you add up all the new valuations, you'll have a new total. And then again, flat budget or minimally increased budget, that would show you what sort of tax shift that you're talking about. And what that would be, you just, once we get through really getting into the sales, we'd have an idea of what that would mean. So it's all, and we keeping the mill rate historically is a good idea. But on top of that, as the assessor, I would like to see the net to be raised from property tax every year. Because like I said, if we kept the budget the same from year to year and doubled our valuations, our mill rate's cut in half. And out of pocket for the taxpayers would be the same. So I think both of those would be good to have.
okay.
Thank you, Rob. Okay. All right.
No, I don't think so.
Do we want to move on from tax commitment at this point? Anybody have any?
Well, we've done what we needed to do.
Yeah. And the next thing on our agenda for the Board of Assessors meeting would be revaluation RFP put out for us. So
I did provide like a one pager that the state has on their website about reval. Most of you probably are familiar generally with most of what's in there. And then I did look at a couple. This one's modeled after Wiscasset, who just went out earlier this year.
Okay.
Or end of last year. And try to put placeholds in for things that were unique to us. I'd have to work with Rob, will probably fill some of those, values in there about total number of accounts and this many commercial, this many residential, that kind of thing. The bigger piece though is really, how in depth do you want to go? The more in depth you go on a property with a reval, obviously the higher the cost will be.
Sure.
I know I've talked briefly with Rob about kind of how they do them. You know, and you can kind of on its surface look at every property with a building and kind of make sure you're getting accurate dimensions and clear, you know, and information, updated information as to what's there. You can go as far as going in every building if you're allowed, and really getting a good inventory of the quality of the work in a home. If granite countertops or laminate countertops, and I mean, you could go into that much detail if you wanted. And then I noticed they had personal property on there. And I don't think I've ever talked with Rob or Ed about, you know, kind of doing personal property revals, but you know, that's something that was in theirs. I think it's worth understanding more about how in depth do we want to go with the reval process. You know, so here's a starting point for review of the RFP, and open to your thoughts on that today or going forward.
Okay. Rob, what is the, help us, I mean, average reval? I mean, Andy's talking about some different options with how in depth. I mean, what do you typically see when you do revals? Is there a typical?
There is. So, in the case in here in Damariscotta, with the records as they are, they're in pretty good shape. So a good middle ground is the way I would recommend approaching it, where we would go to, you know, we would go out, take the current record with us to every property, verify measurements, make sure that everything is accounted for on the face of the earth. There weren't things that were added without permit, things of that nature. And as far as an interior inspection, we ask, and if they regret, and if they deny us, we just have a conversation at the door, going through the listing that's there. Because again, like I said, we have an active database here. We're just verifying. The database has been updated fairly well. The other steps that Andy mentioned would be, you know, doing interior inspections for everybody, guaranteeing that we get in a certain percentage of every house and things like that. That's kind of not necessary because we have a good base. If a lot of the towns that have put out some RFPs lately, they put out Wiscasset is a really good example because we did bid on that. And our bid against their specs was, we go to every property twice. We go there the first time with the record, we verify everything. If somebody's home and they allow us entry, we go inside, verify that. And when we leave that property, we have made our gathering of data complete. We then will try one more attempt to gain interior inspection. And that's kind of a middle ground. It's a good way for a bidder to really calculate the cost. And you're going to get that second opportunity to get a more detailed look of the property. That's the way we like to do it. If you get into the guaranteed inspections and you've got the whole keeping a schedule and calling back, and it does that. I did calculate that I would add 15% to the price of the contract just because of all the extra time you spend chasing around data collection. And we don't need a personal property revaluation. Prior to us arriving, and then we've continued with that, we send a letter out to every current business owner with a full asset list of what they're being assessed for now. And the returns we get responses at a very, very high rate. And with personal property, we assess that at full value every year. They tell us their asset list and what they paid for them. We then assess them at that full value, depreciate them physically based on our charts. And then when our certified ratio is less than 100%, we lower their personal property values down to whatever the real estate level set at. So if a revaluation happens, we would just take the numbers at face and put the ratio of personal property back up to 100. So I wouldn't recommend doing that at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful. All right. Anybody have any thoughts?
Just I'm just curious, how competitive is this space? Or, it's, he should probably not listen.
Right,
but it's-
right. I think it's tough. I think, it's really hard from what I'm hearing from my colleagues to, one, acknowledging that we're 2 to 3 years out probably.
Yeah,
Yeah. I know Wiscasset, was hoping for like a 2025. I think they're likely to probably get 2026, I believe.
Mhm.
Dennis was saying, by the time they get that finished. I mean, there's few and they're pretty well booked. So that right out of the gate, I know generally when you're doing the RFPs, the easier you can make them to put this together and don't require a binder presentation, the more likely you are to get a response.
Mhm.
Because, a lot of them already have the work. So, they know, we're not alone in our value that we're assessing differs greatly from what the state says we should be worth and what the market rate's happening. So you're competing with many towns.
Lots
right
of different towns, yeah.
now. We know our gap is $100 million from what the state says we should be valuing ourselves at and what we've just talked about committing for.
right.
And so we're, again, not alone there, and it'll continue to probably grow some.
So.
When
so-
was our last eval?
5, I think.
Okay, that's what it said in there. Yeah.
Long
So-
time ago.
So even if we do this RFP and everything went according to plan, it wouldn't be impacted until the fiscal year of 28.
Most likely 7 or 8. Yeah.
Maybe
I mean, we do know we're going to do something next year and have a conversation about next year. If that number from the state stays at $100 million gap, we're still gonna have to have a conversation next year like we did last year about an across the board factor.
Right.
Yeah.
Rob was explaining because we did that factor last year, we can kind of hold that homestead value and in the ratio we've certified to again this year.
Mhm.
But we again know we're gonna have to address that next year if that number doesn't go down.
So Rob, a town like this size or similar, how long does it usually take to start and complete usually?
It'll be a year,
Year.
one commitment cycle, it can be all done.
A year?
Yeah.
Mm,
Okay.
We're small. We only have 2,000.
But we got good records too.
Yeah. That's a lot of
A
work.
lot of work.
A lot
And-
of legwork.
You can't have it done in any less than a year, meaning between 2 commitments. From the one commitment would be the old numbers and the next commitment would be the new numbers. Some bigger cities can take multiple years to gather the data and put together the sales study, but the shortest amount of time you would get would be between 2 commitments.
Andy, what's your goal to get this RFP out?
By the end of the calendar year.
Yeah, okay.
Sooner if you're ready.
Right.
I think just
Sooner the better. I mean, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I think just making sure, to eliminate personal property, I do think it's worth us doing an inventory of the number, who's in business in town. This kind of gets back to the business licensing.
Mhm.
Short of driving or walking and actually going to see, do our records actually truly reflect all the businesses in town? What percentage may or may not be missing? Maybe we've got them all.
Mhm.
I know there's been questions and we don't do a licensing thing, so.
Yeah.
And then looking at, Rob mentioned a good return rate. I guess it'd just be good to know, are we at 90%? Are we at 95%? Are we at 75%? I just gotta verify and see what that return rate is. Just see, are there any gaps? Are we missing any?
And who is going to do that?
Either.
People that
Probably
work
most
in the
likely
office.
internally here at the office, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Some point when we get the capacity to
Yeah.
do it. But that will help understand, okay, we don't need to do personal property. We can deal with those that haven't been included if they aren't. The next commitment.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that number would be helpful. Verifying that would be helpful.
Mhm.
But we can work on, we can even probably, again, being mindful of the parking lot project and some of the other big things that we've got on the radar. Hopefully we can get it turned around. If you want to do it sooner, by the end of September. Just being able to get these numbers in here to make sure we're
Right.
getting
The
accurate stuff.
sooner the better would be good. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
things happen.
Okay, so do you want to have something back by, as far as getting the RFP out? I don't know if everybody's ready. By next meeting or what do you,
I doubt it.
well, that's it. How soon do you
I'll
want?
just plan on maybe the second meeting in September as a deadline. Is that possible?
I can certainly use it as a benchmark.
Right, I mean.
Well, that's, yeah,
step
I mean,
back.
I mean,
Depends on how
we're with
fast.
you. We want to do it as soon as possible. Let us know realistically, what are you looking at?
I think the earliest would be that one,
Okay.
for sure.
So right in that ballpark, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll, yeah, we're on the same page with that, but just a realistic time frame, so we can help you get it along
Which
and
is-
get it out, so.
How
Yeah, I
fast
noticed,
the
I
people in
noticed
the
there's
office
an,
can actually work.
Well, there's a lot, yeah.
contracts where
Be
you sent
together
out the
stuff.
legal
I mean-
review.
Yeah.
Is this the type of contract you'd want to have a legal review as well?
We could, this is just the RFP. This doesn't.
That's true, but
Gives the selection criteria in great detail. Again, it was the most thorough one I'd seen of the ones that were out there currently. But it doesn't include I mean, it's on all the specifications, but it's not the formal contract, which if we wanna, most of this could be pulled into that. But I think at that point, yeah, you'd probably want to have a contract to be signed to be. I think what might be nice is to find a way to try and summarize some of this in like a bid sheet. So it's easy for you guys to kind of compare when they come in with the plowing.
Mhm.
To compare apples to apples.
Okay. Yeah, and then you would ask about legal review, right? Is that what you just?
that's what we did
Yeah,
talk
okay.
about, yeah.
That's what I thought you did. Yeah,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. That's, bring it up, so, okay. Well, we keep plugging away then, all right. Okay, well, any more discussion on that, or we could,
Good to go.
move on, sure?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Rob, I guess we're all set with you, unless you want to hang up the rest of the meeting, but.
Well,
Just can't
maybe
bill us
for a
for it.
bit.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn, unless there's any more discussion, are we good as assessors right now? Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn the assessors meeting.
I'll second.
Hey, Josh, thank you for seconding. Any discussion on that? If not, all those in favor? Okay, so assessors meeting is over, and with that, I'll call the Select Board of Damariscotta meeting to order Wednesday, August 7th. So before we get started, everybody, there's a couple of things I'll run past you. We do have an addition of official action items to consider. There's a carryover request from the chief from the police department. Is all right with the board. I'll add that into number 6 on the official action items.
Mhm.
You good with that? Okay. And I'd also propose that we do have a couple of folks that were waiting patiently
Move them up.
online for
Same rule.
some license renewals.
Mhm.
So if it's all right with everybody, I might move those up to our next course of action. Oh,
Yes.
all right, yeah. Oh, Scott, are you okay with that?
Sure.
We got Jib there as well. All right. we good?
Sorry, I tuned in for the first part of this, I'll tell you.
Oh,
that.
no, you're better off knowing ahead of time. So,
I guess
yeah.
maybe. Just so you know, from a business owner's standpoint, the costs are going up so high for everybody. I understand that yours are too. Keep it, that that discretionary stuff down, people.
We're
My-
trying,
my-
we're trying, Scott. I know, we feel for you. It's
My
cost-
insurance doubled this year. Of course,
Yeah.
interest rates have more than doubled. It's pretty tough. And I
Yeah.
can't double my prices, that's for sure. So,
It's insane. It's hard. So we'll do
really
the
is
best we
right
can.
now.
So.
thanks.
No problem. All right, so we have, license renewals on-premise license renewals for Best Tie and Schooner Landing to consider. Any discussion on either one of those?
I'll make a motion to renew Best Tie and Schooner Landing licenses.
All right, thank you,
A second.
Tom.
A second.
Andrew's going to second. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I noticed that there was, every time that we do one of these things, there's like a police report, which,
Mhm.
it's kind of interesting. But there wasn't one for Best Tie this time. Unless I just missed it for Best Tie. There was one towards the end for,
For Schooner,
I
yeah.
saw it
Schooner.
with Schooner.
I saw the
You're right.
Schooner one, which was on page 55 and
Oh, I thought
54.
that was Best Ties.
No, no, that was Schooner. And I don't know if that's required for the state as well, so I just don't want Best Tie to get in
Sure.
trouble.
Let me go see if it was attached after I sent out the packet real quick.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I didn't catch that either, Dan, so. Yeah. Bear with us a moment there, just technicality, hopefully. Oh, Yeah, because there's. CO for that one. All right. Just making sure we didn't leave something off the packet, guys, so bear with us. Yeah. Yeah. I don't see it tucked in anywhere, but
I don't see it either.
yeah, that's probably a good thing. If there's no police report in the vicinity, that's good for
I wouldn't worry
Best
about-
Eye. I'm not.
I'm still not
Yeah.
worried about it.
Did you ever call the police, Jim?
Yeah.
Is it mandatory to have
Well,
that?
I don't know. I see him I see him for every single one.
You see him in there. I don't think it is. I think we can still,
Even if they're in the area,
Yeah.
it's coded as in the area.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it doesn't automatically count to that address.
So we can,
did come in Monday.
oh, gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
There we go. All right, awesome. So we've got, yeah, we have a motion. I'll call for a vote. So the motion is for both, Best Eye and Schooner. All those in favor? Hey, yep, we are good. No opposed. So guys are all set. Andy, when do they need to?
It should be ready tomorrow by, by 1 o'clock.
Okay, just check in, but by 1 o'clock roughly. Okay.
Scott, we'll have the, entertainment license. We just got that today, so we'll have the entertainment license on for the next meeting.
Yep, no problem.
All
Awesome.
right. Awesome. Yep.
Thank
Thank you,
both.
guys. You're all set. You're more than
Thanks,
welcome to
folks.
hang out for the rest of the meeting.
Thanks for all the good work. Thank you now.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right. And yeah, the qualified catering's not here, right? Is that, okay, so we can, yeah. All right. Maybe just a second here to get my faculties. Okay, let's move along. So we've got some minutes that are tabled, Andy, still. We're gonna wait on those. You and I talked the other day and
Yeah, I got them now.
Next.
Linda had sent,
Yeah.
the 10th, I think, yesterday or Monday, and then I got the ones from the last meeting today, I think. So I'll just review those quick
Yeah.
and then send them out for the next
we'll get them
meeting.
for the next meeting. So,
Okay.
okay, awesome. Sounds good. We do have financials here, folks. So we have payroll warrant number 6 and accounts payable number 7. I'll move payroll 6.
No second.
Josh, going to second. Any discussion on those? All those in favor? Okay, and then we have accounts payable number 7.
I'll move accounts payable 7.
All right, thank you, Josh.
Second.
Ooh, that was a tie.
That's fine.
Give it to her.
Good. Andrew gets it. All right, I'll give it up. Yeah, chivalry's not
Ladies
dead. Look at
first,
that.
ladies-
I
Yeah.
know.
Any discussion on AP 7? Okay, all those in favor? All right, keep the checks going. Okay. Citizens' comments and general correspondence. I think everybody left us online. Nobody there. Anything sneak in at the last minute, Andy? You've got we did get a,
Yeah, I guess definitely one, the 19 towns, 19 stories.
Yep.
I think you all just got an email on it.
Yes.
Email in my
Yes.
Inbox. I also had a letter that came about a month ago. Sharing that something was coming up. Now they've got the dates set for all the towns. I believe the one for here is scheduled for
Last.
Saturday, was it the 20th? The 20th. And that's gonna be a couple locations. One event, it's gonna move from Healthy Lincoln County to Rising Tide and then over to Coastal Rivers Round Top Campus for a waterside something. So just sharing what this is about with you.
Is there anything we need to do?
I think they're hoping folks will attend. Kind of as board members and community leaders, I think they're just hoping that you'll be willing to participate and be at the event.
yeah, okay.
I don't think I'm in town.
If you can't do that, help spread the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can give it
Spread the
on
word, we can do that.
website too, if it need be. And
Mhm.
all right, thank you, Andy.
And perhaps share, I also gave you, a few more details came in. The AOS 93 is trying to pull together the towns, all the town boards, back to the table to talk about the, Educational Service Center.
Yep.
So I gave you the email exchange there from the AOS, with some of the information and to help understand what, they're gonna
Yeah.
try and cover at the meeting. But they're proposing that meeting be held on that's on the 20th.
August 20th, yeah. At Coastal Rivers, right? Yep, no interest.
Yes. And that would start at 5:30. If the board, if, like last time the board had gone to one of those before, if you're gonna have 3 or more of you there, you gotta just call that as a public meeting and.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there, not sure if folks know if that's something that they're available for or gonna attend as a
Yeah,
quorum.
Everybody could, just check your calendars. It's maybe another important one maybe to go to.
Yeah, I'll plan to go.
Yeah. So I assume I'm going to assume we'll have at least 3. So we
So
should.
I'm not in town August 20th.
You're out. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
not.
Yeah. We'll just assume that we'll have quorum.
Enough
Right?
people.
So
yeah.
yeah.
If not, you just don't open it.
So what's that?
And if not, you're just there. You don't open the
Exactly. If
meeting.
not, we're just there. So yeah, but we'll assume we'll have quorum and plan it that way. So
I'm gonna try.
okay. Yeah.
Just gonna check our schedule.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Everybody check the schedules, but like I said, we'll plan on having and we'll go from there. So, okay. On the calendars. All right. And nothing else snuck in there on correspondence. Oh. Well, let's move right along. Andy, it's manager's report here. Get some highlights and what going on.
There's a lot going on.
Nah, nothing. It's been quiet and boring, right?
Um, I can go down through the list. I don't know if there's anything that jumped out at folks, in particular on there. It-
The county housing funds.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, kind of an interesting opportunity there. We're still waiting to hear back from DECD grant we applied for, the housing opportunity grant that we submitted with Newcastle. And so this is largely mirroring that grant opportunity. And so talking with Kevin about kind of 2 tracks, one would be mimicking what we submitted before, and then another one would be to kind of expand that scope and study and look at trying to get maybe the cost covered for some preliminary engineering for, trying to run water and sewer into other parts that are developed, that are seen as developable through both towns' comp plans. Just so there's a number out there. I mean, there's the kind of you can assume $1 million a mile kind of benchmark, but
How much, so what's the amount of funds we're talking potentially here? For this grant?
don't know what they're working with. It just said, send us a letter of interest.
And I guess.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. And the other question is the sanitary district willing to participate in this?
I talked to Scott. He's interested and generally supportive of the idea. I'm not aware that there'd be a match requirement. And so there's no financial interest that would have to be borne that I'm aware of. Unless of course we wanted to see it done and then they can't cover the full cost of it. Then it'd have to be a conversation about, how the gap's covered, but generally open to this, happening. So that was good to hear.
Can they or should they be part of the letter of interest? I mean,
Probably.
the 2 towns, but it'd be great to
Probably.
have just another entity involved.
Right.
Yeah, put a little more oomph behind it.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, we can, keep in good graces with them and
Yeah, so my understanding is that they're just soliciting letters of of interest right now, until next week. And then the commissioners basically are gonna review them and they may very well award based on those letters of interest. I think it depends what comes in. If they've got $2 million worth of funds and $5 million requests, obviously they're gonna have to go through a different process to review it, but if
say
they can satisfy-
very interested.
they can satisfy all of the requests that come in, then they might.
Sounds like an important letter. Well,
Yes.
letter.
They've got a
absolutely.
deadline of
Yeah.
being able to earmark or kind of commit the expenditure by the end of this calendar year.
Yeah.
And then you have until the end of 2026 to spend the funds.
Okay.
So knowing
Yeah.
that they've got some available, they're trying to make sure that it
Awesome.
gets used by the communities that it was provided to.
All right. Yeah, we'll follow up on it. If we can get, 3 entities to sign off on it, Newcastle, Damariscotta and the water district, that would be great. Okay. The town crew has been busy. We've seen some roadside improvements and yeah, we've been bouncing around everywhere, so
Yeah,
it's good.
I reached out to the state earlier this week about that Belvedere and 1B intersection there, that corner that
Yeah,
already is kind of filling back in pretty quick. I had our guys go out and try and line some riprap in there to try and help slow down that flow and the sediment that's going to get carried down to that driveway pipe that we just opened up again. So I'm hoping they can come back and do more than just put in some gravel there. They need to do something a little more stronger, or heavier there. I haven't heard back. And we're just working with Hanley Excavation to finish out the work at Abbey Lane. They had replaced that pipe there, moved it back probably 10 or 12 feet or so from where it was sitting, because it was right along the edge of asphalt. And they kind of pushed it back so it was behind that pole that's there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And working with the property owner to make sure things are good before it's cold finished.
That's
So
great.
did have a meeting out there last week. A little bit of work on Heater Road, just share that. Well, we had the excavator that went back Monday. But we're trying to, there was a ditch through there, which was good to find again. We had one of the crew members go and cut most of the vegetation that was in it. John had opened up the culvert down by Cole's place. That had been blocked for a while. And I think, it's a good, I mean, I've heard that the road is widened over years as material went on and it got spread, further and further. And so that is something there that we might need to address that culvert there before too long here, back again in the fall, just because the culvert runs, just short of the road bed. And so it's the original, I think the original bed mostly, but so that
Road keeps getting wider and
the
wider.
shoulders extend past the pipe. And
Yeah.
so, just a little bit of rain we got last past weekend already starting to show like kind of erosion around that again. So,
Well, we had done that road and put fabric and everything underneath, and Lynn, your uncle, had done it years ago and had it really good, and then somebody came and decided it was time to run a private water line out and dug everything up and
Wow.
put slop back on top.
Mm.
So then it never got really the attention it needed.
right.
So
Yeah.
I know on that lower
That-
part,
That's right, they did it, yeah.
leading up to our garage, we put about $4,000 worth of material in a couple
Mhm.
years ago, and it was
Yep.
some pretty bony stuff. And so what it's missing, and that seems to have held that lower part pretty well this past winter. So I think John and I have been talking to try and get 4 to maybe 6 inches of surface on that, combination perhaps of gravel and some reclaim. And so we're trying to, keep that in mind before we get too far into the fall and try and get that out,
Yeah.
maybe early October, and give a chance for it to pack in well and harden up before winter starts. But that's, when they did prep the area where the mailboxes are slated to go on our property, to come
Yes,
off
I
of
saw
Biskie
that.
Road.
Yeah.
We put a pipe in the ground there, to carry that ditch line. It looked like they might have in the past tried to have the water go out behind that flat spot, which some interesting things there.
I'm sure.
So we're trying to keep it away from our lot as much as possible and keep it going down that ditch line. It looks like we have the pitch we need, so I'm trying to redirect some of that water there. What we're a little uncertain about is from our property, our driveway going down the road further towards the trailer park. Forget the name of that road there. That's really soft there in the springtime. I know some material went in this spring, but it was, some smaller stone, it was straight stone it looked like, but we're going to keep an eye on that. Our goal is to try and get the drainage working the way it was intended. We're a little uncertain between those 2 points if the water was kind of being directed along our property line and Hannaford's property line, which is causing challenges with our building and the shed that's there. And it just kind of stagnates there. If we can get the pitch we need to just send it right down to the stream crossing, we're going to try and do that. But that will be a section of road that will probably look to potentially do the same thing we did on the first section this spring. If it lets go again, we'll bring in some bonier stuff and just drive it in there. The alternative would be to make it a bigger road construction project and rip it up all the way to there and put fabric down, like Josh was saying. And I don't know that we need to go that far with it.
If memory serves me, is part of Heater Road private?
So the first 1,000 feet approximately are now the towns,
Yeah.
and then after that it goes quite a ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And that's all private at that point.
After that, yeah, yeah,
yeah, we just go to the bottom of that hill there.
Yeah, no association or anything. It's just a road.
Just
Just a
there.
road.
It's
Folks
just
chip-
there.
Folks seem to chip in as needed when
Yeah,
needed,
Yeah,
but
it's interesting sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah, okay. Well, good. I know they've been busy. Well, I say they, but we've seen you with a shovel in your hands plenty of times, so.
He even got a sunburn.
What's that?
He even got a
He
sunburn.
did get a sunburn. He did not apply the appropriate amount of sunblock. Yes, following, all right. Yeah, if no more questions or comments on our manager's report, we can move into, back into official action items if, it pleases the board. So
Sure.
we already moved the, license renewals, but we have a qualified catering application. Let me just get that in front of me again.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll move that.
You got it, Dan? All right. And I think Dan made the motion. Tom, did I hear you second?
Yep.
All right, Tom seconded. And any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor? Okay, we'll move that along. Let me sure my notes down. Yeah, the MDOT PPI authorization reserve allocation. That one here.
Mhm.
There we go. All right. Many loose leaf papers here in front of me, so.
we talked about this a
Mhm.
couple of meetings ago.
Yeah,
Tried to put something in writing as a proposal for them to consider. And then the recommendation that you utilize the sidewalk reserve account.
mhm.
This interest is largely driven by what PSAC's been bringing to the board over the last few years and, trying to make sure that there's some pedestrian access along that stretch. There's other things that will be of interest if we're at the table with the state in terms of, what I've noted there for traffic safety as well, beyond just pedestrians, but
Yeah.
it's a reserve balance that we have the ability to utilize now. And until we get this part of the work done, we don't know what kind of dollar amount we're talking about
Yeah.
for construction.
Well, if
Right.
PSAC would be over the moon if it resulted in sidewalks all the way up to.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Whether it's sidewalks or some sort of shared lane like we're doing it from
Right.
kind of Hannaford to the
Yeah.
school. But again, this gives us the opportunity because it's otherwise not going to be on the state's radar. They're looking
Right.
at their drainage needs and their road conditions. and-
Right.
Okay. What do you need for a action on that, Andy?
I would think, because you've already,
We've already
the last meeting
approved.
approved me to, pursue it. And so I don't think I have is the authorization for the funds.
Oh,
So it would
Okay.
be a motion of the board to allocate the 75,000.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember, we moved forward with it, but yeah, okay. So yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the authorization of up to 75,000 for the MDOT PPI. Fair enough?
mhm.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Dan's got a second. Okay, any more discussion on that one? Those in favor? Okay. And let's look next highway facility, assault building.
I didn't include any photos. I know Daryl and Josh.
Bad enough.
Daryl and Josh had seen some, we do have a couple of the back panels inside the structure off. So they could do the engineering assessment.
Oh, you did, yeah.
We saw a couple of poles that were pretty well rusted out at kind of towards the lower part. It went higher on many more.
Oh, I don't doubt it. Yeah.
The back wall is kind of a timber frame, kind of supporting, I think there's some metal parts, but it's a lot of timber frame, 2x8s back there. Most of those have failed. And we know that there's the top's we've had the top on, I think now went on in 2015, I believe, or
Yeah,
16.
That was a new cover, but the structure itself,
Oh, that was still an original framing.
I think it was.
Okay.
I think the new cover was
Okay.
purchased.
They added the
Plywood.
plywood at that time.
Yes.
So these prices here, from what I'm reading, on their sites include all the framing. And there's a few different, types there, a few different sizes. The size that's there now is 20 by 36, I believe. Talking with John, I mean, I'm not sure at this moment what they're gonna come back with, from an engineering report on the foundation that's there. A little pony wall or knee wall. I do worry that it won't be adequate. One side of it does have a pretty substantial horizontal crack.
Yeah, there's a
across it.
crack on that one
and
side.
It does appear to go through.
Yeah.
So I'm a little nervous about that, but I'd at least like to try and get the top coming because we know we're gonna have to do that.
Yeah.
And I do see this as an investment because it doesn't have to, you know, we know that the sand building's also kind of still, what do we do with that long term? It's not something that
Yeah.
we can continue to probably use for too far out. But this at least is a structure where it's located that if it's not used for salt, we could down the road still use it for equipment storage and, you know, where we lack that net covered storage at the moment anyways. So
Yeah, it's multi-use.
this will have uses if we can keep it going for, I think the warranties on one of those was 15 years. They're all 15. One of them was 10 on the fabric. So, I mean, if we can get the longer life out of it by, you know, how we load it and how much goes in there. That'd be
Setup
great.
wise, as far as staff, we can do it with the highway department good enough. Is it 2-man, 3-man job or?
Not certain. Have never put one of those up, but I do know they're generally meant to be relatively simple. We have to get a
The
lift.
homeowners and type of, yeah, they get
Yeah.
ordered in, so, yeah.
How we secure it, whether it's, I did start to run some numbers out on if we do have to replace that foundation block that's there, we could use precast blocks. There's a facility right across
Right
from
across
us
the
that
street.
could help bring them over. You know, but, and I am hopeful to get kind of a ballpark estimate for, I've done some, you know, online, what's the average cost per yard for concrete? And if we wanted to pour something a little bit more substantial and kind of gain height, I mean, one of our challenges, that structure, I think's got a 4-foot pony wall. And then the plywood was added another 4 feet on that. So we were trying to fill it as if it was an 8-foot tall structural supported wall, and it's not. You know, the taller the walls you got, the more you can put in that footprint. So 2 things that we're not trying to consider right now. This is just for the fabric and the frame. But between John and I looking at it, we do think we can extend it a few more feet. Even if that foundation that's there now is still serviceable, we can just add some foundation blocks coming out from that.
Okay.
And it won't compromise. The only thing it might do is eliminate trucks going between the 2 buildings, which
Right.
they don't need to anyways. We could still get a loader or a mini excavator through there if we did that. So we felt okay about that. We still want to make sure there's access up for both buildings through there. So that would leave you with about 8 to 10 feet between the 2 at that point. So those are just some ballpark prices. I would recommend looking at the peak design potentially, just because one of them had a higher gauge or, you know, thickness of fabric than the rest. Those shelter techs were a little bit thicker.
Oh, good, okay.
Don't know about the kind of that leg or rafter spacing on those. I did see there appeared to have a better snow and wind rating on those shelter techs. I don't know if it was entirely because of the design or if they're getting because of the heavier fabric. But I mean, if this is something we truly want to try and get the most amount of time out of and use that warranty that's there, then I'd recommend thinking about one of those ones potentially.
You mean Shelter Logic,
Yeah, the shelter tech SPs.
Farm Tech?
Oh, it's probably, yeah, you got Shelter Logic here, but Shelter Tech's
sorry.
probably the brand, yeah, same. Okay. So they're all 16, 48. Yeah, and the peaked ones are probably the Quonsit's gonna maybe tuck in a little bit.
I was worrying about the lead time to get these purchased and delivered, so I was hoping we might consider trying to just get this in the works if it's a 4-week lead time potentially.
Yeah.
To make sure we have it in time before we start bringing salt in.
So do you know what was the one that we had there now?
Yeah, that clear span pony wall.
Yeah.
But it was 20 by 36, I believe.
So that was the make of it, was the clear span pony.
Yep.
Make sure you check the reviews.
Yeah, go on Amazon, take the.
Check the review.
Oh, all right. So you're asking for 15,000 out of the reserve now to cover what you need to, you think? So. Right. Yeah, I'll make a motion, to authorize the town manager to expend up to 15,000 from the highway facility reserve for replacement structure for the salt shed.
I'll second.
Josh, gonna second. Any discussion on that? Be good? Okay, all those in favor? Four, yep, that's everybody. All right. Yeah, that needs to be done. Those, everybody gets a chance to take a look at the sport so you can see what, salt does to.
Mhm.
Honestly, if any of the board members haven't been out to the facility to see it, I
Mm.
would encourage you to just pop in someday and take a look and walk around a little bit.
Yeah, take a look. I'd be honest, it'd been a long time before I've been out there until we did that last walk around, and it's yeah, a lot of stuff changes in a short amount of time, so. All right, and we have Revision Energy. Okay, this has been a lot of questions on this one lately.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, why ours aren't working?
Yeah,
You're-
I get
you're
a few of
ground
those. In
zero
fact, I
there.
think there's somebody sitting next to me asked me, he was walking around. Yeah,
Because
So-
the person was asking me,
you're right. Yeah. I just passed the box. So yeah.
and you happened to be there.
I happened to be there. So, all right.
Talking with Revision Energy about the current two-port system that
Mhm.
is still waiting on parts from what they keep sharing, that the manufacturer of that, I think it's a Clipper Creek system, for whatever reason, probably one of the most simplest parts on there,
Mhm.
they say is still backward.
clip.
Not having that clip on there does increase the risk of arcing when people are unplugging and so, with that risk in mind, I said, let's just,
Yeah.
Shut it down.
Yeah, absolutely.
it's not worth it.
Absolutely.
And so there's money out there from the state to incentivize. They have a pretty strong plan to try and get more EVs out there, charging ports out there. So you'll notice in this proposal here that it would be asking for $80,000 from efficiency main incentive. There is a federal tax credit, and from what I can read on the IRS website, municipalities and nonprofits are eligible, even though we don't pay an income tax. It would be treated as if it was an overpayment and come back to us as a rebate, basically, or overpayment. So it is worth verifying with our auditors to make sure before we, accept the terms of whatever, if we were to be awarded that.
Mhm.
But the way they're presenting it, with a estimated project cost of 103,000, with what we would ask from Efficiency Maine and the potential for the tax credit, it seems like a low entry cost for us.
Yes.
And that would be
Knowing that we need to really do it.
that would be for eight plugs. It would
Mhm.
change the location because you can't put 8 over in that other area.
Right.
It would require, I think the way we put the 2 ports in, they run off of the same service from the bathroom.
Bathroom,
Mhm.
yeah.
And they recommend, for a couple of reasons, having it kind of be its own direct
Should be isolated.
isolated thing. And part of that is
This-
it'll allow us
this-
to meter, and we can't meter those 2 that are there now because it is just coming off the same.
So would they stay? Is there a net 6, or are those gonna stay and there's gonna be these 8? So 8 altogether? 10 altogether?
Yeah, I mean, I know the board was interested in, networked devices, which is what this proposal would be for.
Mhm.
Where that's still backward, you can decide if you want to keep those 2 in there that are unnetworked, or if you wanted to remove those where they're failed. This program does allow us to replace failed systems. So that's something we could do.
And
I
I'd swap them out.
don't think we should keep them if they're dangerous. That's a liability.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my thought is if you're committing more parking spaces
Yeah.
for EVs, and then you need to remove,
Yeah.
get those other 2 back.
Right.
Well, you'd probably get more than.
Well, that's the question. When they're not all used, can anybody else park there? Probably not, right?
That'd be up to the board.
Yeah,
You can kind
yeah.
of set the use of them. That's a piece that's not presented here, is to understand. I did follow up today to understand how do we start talking about, so we can share with you, well, what would we charge to cover our costs? Like, what are the costs? If you're networked, you're gonna have an annual fee to be networked for someone to manage that collection. There's gonna be dedicated known electrical costs for having the service there. This location was say prime or suitable because there's a pole coming in
Mhm.
down Water Street. So it just, you'd come off of that is what their thought would be. We'd have to work with CMP to kind of get that spec'd out, which I think they mentioned in here is a potential for that utility feasibility fee estimated at 3,500. So it sounds like we'd probably pay that. The way they got the number set up here, it looks like it would cover it with that overpayment or rebate. But that would be in their mind the simplest way to bring that power into this. We might also find ourselves saving about that much money or more by not putting some of the infrastructure in that the parking lot's covering. Because if you're putting these in, you're putting bollards in, but you'd be taking out the guardrail probably. So we could look at what
Yeah,
the
get a
offset
shorter-
might be
shorter section
relative to
there.
that $3,500.
Yeah.
And I haven't run that yet to see, but
Yeah, it would make sense to,
And how long does it take to charge in general?
this
Like
varies.
20
Dan's
minutes?
got an EV. I don't.
Yeah,
It depends upon the car.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and the chargers, these are level 2 chargers. They're not the fast chargers.
Right.
Oh,
So,
they're not.
No,
But if you were to plug in standard, Civic EV for
Yeah,
2 hours or 3 hours.
oh yeah, no, they would get, for the tourists coming through, they would get it.
80%,
Yeah.
usually they bring them up to
Yeah.
80% and
In
they
a
shut
couple
off.
hours,
Yeah.
so-
In a couple
Yeah,
hours.
So
Yeah.
it's
So
typically,
is there any way that we can do like a 2-hour limit on a parking place?
Well, that's what we have, I think now is 2 hours
Yeah.
on the ones that are there, but it requires the police to go in.
Having used chargers where you pay for them all the time,
Right.
there's actually if you stay there too long, in other words, your car's charged,
it starts charging you.
it charges you a penalty
Yeah.
if you don't go
Oh.
pick up your car.
Okay.
And it's all on your phone, so you know when your
Okay.
car is fully charged. You can just monitor it and it'll
Yeah, it
it'll
was-
text you and stuff. So it's
Either see it as a
One the other
penalty
day,
or
there
a
was like
premium for the
60
parking.
60
Yeah.
cents a minute, something like that on one the other day. I was reading about. it, and
yeah.
they
So you
over that time.
so
yeah.
there are ways to sort of
Okay.
limit people.
So it
just
will limit itself.
in that way. it
Then
would.
in that way.
Yeah, but if
If we
somebody
wanna
just came in and
use it
parked there
for
who was
parking,
that's really hard to.
Accepted parking enforcement and ordinance, then how we,
Yeah.
how we enforce that.
Yeah.
So,
You see on the ground, they'll say EV parking only for those spots.
mhm.
And these are further up the parking lot, so these aren't going to be the first places people park
No.
anyway, so.
But we are losing X amount of parking.
Yeah, but I agree with Josh. I think if you free up
you
those.
take the other
just
one
take the
out.
other- You
yeah,
take the
there's no
others
need to
out.
have that.
Yeah.
And you'll
Yeah.
find too that if you take a walk through the parking lot, any particular time, you're gonna see, I mean, the EV is still, the percentage is low, but there's a high amount in the area.
Mhm.
So you'll
Mhm.
find that there's always, there's a half a dozen plugins out there at any time of the day. So I think it's just gonna shift them.
Yeah.
Somebody's coming in shopping, I mean, the 2 or 3 hours, and then they're gonna park and plug in.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know if it's not really gonna take away necessarily, it's gonna move, it's gonna shift it around, but we
Yeah.
should remove that other one and have them,
Definitely.
Yeah.
have them in one spot done.
Yeah.
That was my question, I was gonna go to, where are we gonna put 8? And then I thought this was a stock photo until I looked at it. and went, oh, wait, that's the parking lot. So,
Yeah, it
Yeah,
makes
that
sense to
other
put
one.
it, makes sense to put them there.
yeah, haul it out of there, network them for payment and.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hmm.
I would probably like to just share with our engineer and just put that on a topo just to kind of see where that is relative to what we're talking about for sea level, tidal
Yeah.
flooding.
Absolutely.
That's generally a little bit higher up there, but
Put 'em
just
up
making sure that we're being mindful of, it is right along the water there and, we are planning for some of this. So let's
Yeah,
make
it's
sure.
on the higher side of the parking lot.
That parking lot never floods.
Yeah. Oh, no. But,
Nineteen.
yeah. But a good time.
Time this year.
No doubt, huh? All right, you just need a head nod
Okay.
from us to move along with that, or you,
What do you need from us?
I think so. I don't see where it's,
you're just,
maybe, I have the recommended action there. I will still, before I submit it, connect with our auditor just to kind of verify that it looks good. I mean, again, the IRS website suggests that we're good.
yeah.
Okay.
The other thing too, and I've asked you this before, but the language of the existing grant that put the other one in, we just need to make sure that we're not violating anything.
Well, yeah, so I can confirm with them before we submit too, but
Yeah.
this program allows us to replace failed systems. And so with that one, we're considering failed.
Mm-hmm.
There.
Yeah,
folks
we just
that
make sure
from
we're
revision
covered
are
so
saying
they
that
don't-
we're okay to just remove that. Now we can remove it, keep it in, put it, over here if we want in the future. It's just right now it's no use to us and no one's
No,
able to
no.
use it.
You-
It's not a
I do-
networked
You could
device.
sell it to somebody.
I recall at one point we had discussed, because when the solar array was down, we had, looked at temporarily shutting off the charging station and the language, you remember that? But the language of the grant wouldn't let us do it.
Do
They
it.
said, no, you can't do that. We couldn't shut it off. So just make sure,
Yep.
I don't have to pay anybody back, basically, so.
If it doesn't work,
Yeah. If it, right, if it's broken, it's broken. So I think we're fine, but just make sure we're not,
I know one of the things that needs to be on is a SharePoint. There's some sort of database online you can log into to kind of see where the charging ports are.
Well,
That was a contingency of the grant, and I don't see ours on there. I mean, it should show out of service. or
folks come
something.
in with an app, look, and it
You-
comes
you
up.
wanna-
I don't know if
you
it's
wanna
on
look
that
right now?
particular one.
It's,
Yeah. But I know, I know that I've had folks drive through and ask me like, hey, you've got a charging station behind you. I'm like, no, I don't. A gas station, go over there.
Is it on plug share?
I think that was the one we're supposed to put it on.
Yeah.
Plug share. Sounds familiar.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Well, I mean, I think we should pursue it. I'll make a motion to recommend the town manager pursues the grant, funding options for the revision energy proposal and, as presented.
A second.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Any more discussion on that? Dave's looking up the share here, so.
The only one that's on here in the downtown is Rising Tide.
Isn't that, huh?
Mhm.
And that's
Have
the
we
only
heard
one-
if Hannaford's putting any in?
That's the only one that's close.
haven't,
Or anything, yeah.
No.
I'll call for, well, Dan's looking at, all those in favor of that motion? Okay. Carry on, so. Yeah, I don't know what, I know some folks have been by, I mean, there's probably different apps, but I know I've
Oh.
had some folks drive by and.
I have 5 different ones on here right now
Yeah.
because there's all these different charging systems, so it depends on which one.
Which one where and.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
what.
yeah, so you just keep loading them up.
There is is there a limit to when to get it in?
it's
Yeah.
rolling, so the sooner the better.
Okay,
It's just,
okay.
it's an open period and there's money.
Okay.
Presumably still available, so sooner
Okay,
the
So
better.
we should do it. As soon as- Okay.
All right. Add-on number 6, we have a carry forward request, from the police department. I think everybody got the proposal here the chief had sent through.
So on the back
Yes.
side of that email, I
Mhm.
I didn't necessarily update the number, so this is largely what you saw last time, the last meeting. You'll see underneath the police line there where it's grade, the 8310 that he's requesting.
Mhm.
Rounded it down to 10, so it wasn't 11 or 98 cents. So with an additional 8310, that would bring his unspent balance down to 13,250.71 from last year. And then the total at the bottom there, total unspent from FY 24 would be reduced from 88,713 and 75 cents to 80,403.75. I did look at the revenues that came in. What we don't want to do is dip too far into that and be mindful of where our undesignated fund balance sits. We're at 150,000 on this year's commitment to offset taxes. We did have a significant amount of money beyond what we expected for interest on our checking accounts. So we're good, largely because of that one, without impacting kind of that balance you aim for, or with the 150 we're utilizing. So I feel, if you want to do that, we're going to still stay healthy with that fund balance. And it'll help him carry those costs that he experienced in last year's budget for this one. We did talk internally about coming up with a better communication system to try and do them at once rather than.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, absolutely. We can streamline it and make sure it gets taken care of. So, but if we're financially, we're in good shape to send it through. So. All right. So the chief's request is the 8310.98.
Mhm.
All right. Can I do Josh and put it down to 8310, keep the 98 cents out? Is that-
I would, just for fun.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the police department's carry forward request of $8,310.98.
A second.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Rounded it up.
Stay right in the middle. Any discussion on that?
Abstain, didn't I?
All those in favor? Vote, yep, all right, all five, okay. Yeah, if we can just get it streamlined, I know things sneak up sometimes and get dropped through the cracks, but the more streamlined it can be, the better for everybody. Okay, any more? Yeah, I think that's all the official action. We didn't sneak a 7 in there, do we?
No.
We're good. All right. So Andy, you've got a couple things here for discussion items. We get
Yes, I don't think I brought back, we had at the last meeting had that MMA Legislative Policy Committee kind of survey.
Yeah.
I don't know if folks had a chance to think about priorities, you know, the
Oh.
board's interested in having them focus on. There were kind of two things to start, which was how do, you know, they explained how they typically approach this legislative session, which is basically dig in and defend or attack, you know, things that went in before if they aren't good for towns. One of the examples was LD 2003 a couple years ago, property tax stabilization. You know, those went forward and generally are kind of seen as good, but there's issues with actually implementing it kind of as a kind of standard across the board for everyone to follow. So, and then the other program there that they had worked hard last time to improve, that tax stabilization program, the state simply just underestimated that cost that they'd have to be reimbursing the town. So, or, you know, with this session to prioritize certain issues and to go at it from that perspective. So are there if there were major things you'd like to voice your opinion on and share, they're open to hearing.
I'll be honest with you, I forgot
we
about
talk
this because we did, yes,
We did
in
talk
our
about
last
it.
meeting, and then he presented it, and then I was
thought
gonna
we
follow up
decided-
with the
oh.
rest of the board, and I dropped the ball and forgot. And we haven't discussed it since until right now, so.
And it's due.
It's due by the 16th, right?
Yeah.
So, can you,
Just say that Andrea did say that she wanted to see the fire department's OSHA
yep,
situation addressed.
yep, that was a
That was
suggestion,
our-
which I think we can get behind, so.
Priority.
Yeah, so, I wonder if we can do it this way, because we don't want to, because we can wait the next meeting, we want to do this pretty soon. Can you send this out in an email separately? And then I'll touch base with everybody with that work and we can get something together. So I think we can probably all agree on the looking
OSHA
into the
one,
fire
definitely.
department and the OSHA stuff. I mean, it's a
Definitely.
pretty easy one. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I
No
think-
hanging fruit on that one.
I did misremember it. Page 81 in your packet. So
Yeah.
so I don't know if you want to alternatively, if you want to fill part of it out and
Yeah, we'll probably send it out in an email reminder. So it's like, we've got it documented in front of us, just this particular one. And then if we can, yeah, if we've all got a template here. So if we can get something, together by the 16th is what, next Friday? So, yeah, it'd be nice to have it back well before that, you know, first of the week or something. So maybe over the weekend, folks, we can look into it and jot down some things and I can touch base with everybody. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Because we can't all get together on it because then that's a meeting. So it's kind of
Yeah, I have a question
Yeah.
about it, because I was looking.
yeah,
at
go
it,
ahead, Dan. Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out how to do it, because I can come up with policy areas that obviously this town is particularly interested in. But I don't know how to describe the description of a bill as it relates to it. You know what I mean?
I think we can, yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I think we can give it like some general ideas. I don't know either how you'd write it in the description of a bill.
Yeah.
But, if we're,
Unless you have some.
we can try and
Guidance.
work to it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you put a lot of legalese in that it doesn't make sense, so you can't,
Right.
you know, so.
I mean, the big thing, I mean, you need kind of like a foundation piece. You don't have to have the full bill fleshed out, but I mean, it's important if you're going to try and get anything started to have, you know, the policy area you're wanting to attack or you know, fix or preserve. And then just a general description, what you see on that front page of the legislative bills when they come in, and so it can at least be put in as a placehold, if nothing else. It still has to go through and get a sponsor and all of that. So this approach would work, you know, for MMA, and they would go and find sponsors to put forward if there's commonalities across the towns. this would also work for us to work with our local representatives, if the board
Oh,
has
yeah,
something more
absolutely.
specific MMA isn't gonna push forward. So it would be something to think about, we always wait for the election and then it's kind of like a mad dash to get bills, and this might be a good time to prompt, and so we can
Well,
always reach
actually,
out.
speaking of that, I actually ran into our state rep the other day, and I said, "Do you ever come to talk to select boards,
Mhm.
just in general, in terms of what you're doing and what the state is doing?" And she said she'd be more than happy to come meet with us if
Been a
if
while.
we're open to it.
Last one,
Barry or
we-
Cameron?
Lydia.
Oh, Lydia,
the
sorry,
state rep,
Lydia,
And
yeah.
and she said she'd be more than happy to, so just find a date that works, and if we wanted to invite her, and she'd come and talk about her
Mhm.
work and the state and how we can work with her to
Yeah,
help
but
this kind of stuff.
But is this the kind of thing that we want to ask her about?
Not, this is specifically for MMA.
I
I'm
mean,
just,
this is MMA,
you're
but it
just saying,
just
like,
made me think of it. in
you're
terms of the
asking
state
about, yeah,
bills
the
and stuff.
description of the
Yeah.
bills, like we could, if there's anything that was specific, you could put it here and still advocate.
Yeah.
It still needs a sponsor,
right.
Yeah.
so it'll help MMA even further if it is selected as part of their platform to
Yep.
Yep.
have others advocating. I mean, there's
Yep.
a lot in the state and you need enough to carry the votes. And so
Sure.
anytime since I've been here, we haven't been particularly engaged and active with any of the kind of the bills and
Right.
policies, but
historically, I don't think we have, you recall
a while
anything?
since I've been here.
I know, yeah. I think the last one was the local tax,
Sales tax.
sales tax that Matt had gone and testified for, but yeah, been a while.
That still
So-
percolates. The Service Center Coalition still is interested in that as an option.
Yeah, still interested as an option. Well, we know, I mean, as a board, we know that we've all agreed that we're concerned with the fire department, with the OSHA rules coming through. We know housing is that's always a hot button ticket, so
Yeah.
maybe we can revolve around, I mean, we should revolve around some of the things that have already been, already high concerns. Infrastructure is always one things, but yeah, I don't know how you put them into a bill, but get the ideas first, I guess, that we can.
Well, I mean,
agree on.
starting with your challenges, right? And then
Yeah.
kind of defining, okay, housing, but what is it about housing,
Mm.
and would you like to see the state support the effort? How exactly?
Whether it's in, research or grant funding.
Right.
Yeah, I know. That's the tricky part is where does it go? So,
What do we want from
yeah.
her?
So maybe, if we can maybe over the weekend, folks, we can,
Yep.
look at those major areas that we look at, and maybe we'd amount to how would it look into a bill? Like what would the state's, the state's responsibility be, so to speak? So,
I know back last year or November, and in the late fall, there was conversation about the shellfish stuff and how the aquaculture licensing is written now, right? And if that's something that's still of interest to the board, again,
Yeah.
whether it's on this survey or with our representatives, one of which is I think a chairperson of the committee,
Yeah.
co-chair. Something to put on your radar before it gets into after elections and, then it's Christmas time and no one's been able to get anything in,
No, they're both,
start doing this.
both our senator and our state person are interested. I think a lot of towns are in terms of the concentration of in particular commercial function on a river. So there'll be some support.
and even, if we're looking at the, fire departments being affected by the OSHA rules, I mean, maybe it's something on the lines of, I don't know where where the state level training and stuff, do they,
Mm.
is there they have to increase funding or increase instructors, or, do we
Frequency.
look at national, pulling it?
Yep.
What's that?
Time.
What time, exactly, yeah, so that's kind of a,
But also, John,
Yep.
well, we need to think about what John said too.
I mean, there's a lot of facets
A lot
with
of
the training
factors.
requirements. I mean,
Yeah.
there's can folks in your department find the time amongst themselves to be able to do it,
Exactly.
let alone the cost. And so making sure those costs are as low as possible, that the frequency of and the amount of time it takes to get done, that the
Mhm.
training, the amount of training opportunities are pretty scant right now. So you have to increase, those probably across the state as like a
Yeah.
regional level, I'm guessing. Just to make that, if it goes through. I mean,
Mhm.
I haven't heard any updates and hopefully they're just going through the review now and
oh yeah, there could be a
there'll
while.
be something out by the end of the year, maybe. I don't know in terms of like what the next steps might be. That's probably a little soon, but
Thankfully, the wheels move slow, but it's good and bad sometimes, so. Oh, all right, so something I do apologize, for that last meeting, we discussed this and gonna follow up and get something back, so,
Mhm.
all right, let's look at the local fiscal recovery funds.
talked about the counties a little bit,
Mhm.
not with dollar values, but, I needed to confirm with Cheryl, but I don't believe the town has spent any of its money earmarked for broadband yet. And that was, if
Yeah.
not, there's 12,500. I only questioned because there was, I believe, 10,000. The way it was talked about, that would go for, I mean, there, the summary was 12.5.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's what it was at the town meeting. I know I've got other notes that show it was like 2,500 was gonna go to, national something or some group supporting them. The 10,000 was clear in some of the notes I've seen. But what I've listed here is what was on the, for voters to approve, that 12,500
12,500.
to support the broadband committee of the two towns.
Yeah.
Newcastle's gone and done their thing. So we still have the money. We've kind of tentatively had the voters earmark where it would be spent, but if for the board to discuss, is that something with that amount of money we plan to spend before the end of 26? I kind of wonder, what do we do with only 12,500 towards broadband? And
Not much.
would you rather see, that reconsidered and appropriated towards something else? And we'd have to do that before the end of this calendar year.
Okay.
I do like your suggestions about putting something in better video
Mm.
system in here. Watching the planning board meeting from Monday, I saw that and watched some of that the other day, and I was like, man, we really need some new cameras.
Yeah, well, we can see it right here. Yeah, yeah.
We budgeted it last year. We budgeted last year, and I think
My
we were,
stigmatism or it's just.
we were working on, it wasn't an official quote by any means, but Jeff had provided from LCTV had provided us with kind of like a ballpark what we might expect to pay. And I think it was like 2,500 or maybe almost $3,000, but I'm looking at the same specs that he had put in some of those products, and that's not the number I'm finding right now. We're potentially up, depending on what we want to have, but we're closer to probably $4,000 all said and done. Maybe a little higher. And I still wonder about, even if we replace these two fixed cameras, still having and utilizing this money to buy even like a meeting owl, where
Yes,
if we've got
we
a
talked
meeting
about
somewhere
that.
else,
Exactly.
right now we're doing training on the website. And so we just pull out that big table in front of this TV. And as long as the laptop we're plugged in with has a camera, okay, but the way these are fixed, it doesn't. So if we're able to utilize that system, so again, if we take our meeting outside of this meeting room, we can still capture it with a computer and make available to the public. And I just think looking at this room and its setup, we'd be able to invest in it if we wanted to with that money.
I think that's a good way to go to
Yeah.
start.
But so we gotta use 12,500. If that's only gonna use maybe half of it, could you do both of those things in terms of enhancing public safety in the building too, or for the employees?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what
They're both good ideas.
that second one looks like. I did conveniently, or it's timely, that I had someone reach out from Representative Pingree's office. One of their staffers reached out.
Yeah.
Had just had a conversation with folks from CISA, which has, the branch closest to us is out of Boston, but they've got staff members as part of that agency to come in and help do vulnerability type assessments on your building, like
Yeah.
where your weak point. And
Yeah.
and so I think it's something that we're going to try and bring them up to our Mid-Coast Managers Group this fall and talk. But I said, well, maybe I'll get ahead of that and see if we can get them in before that, so I can speak to how it's worked for us.
Yeah.
So I just, think about, in kind of pairing that with the fact that we have to fix some of these doors.
Mhm.
If we can package that as part of that improvement, I just thought it was a way to kind of
Yeah, I like that idea.
fix things that we have to fix.
Right.
Yeah.
In the interim, maybe somebody could dust off the lenses from the two cameras. Might help.
It's popular.
So
Linda, you're popular over there.
So maybe because these funds, it was a little unclear when it first came out for the towns, like how does this get approved? Is it like a grant? Because it's very well dictates how we can use it.
Yeah.
It was very broad in some ways, but so some towns went at it and treated it like a grant. I think MMA had recommended you treat it however you do your normal budgeting process, follow that, which is our town meeting.
Mhm.
And so we would have to bring it back to, and so if you guys want some time to look at that list of other kind of broad category options, there's a lot there.
There's a lot there. Yeah.
Do look through that. We don't need to decide today necessarily. And we can dive into any one of those categories a little deeper if anything else kind of jogs something that you're interested in.
These multiple pages are the options?
Oh, yeah.
Those are just the categories.
Right.
The document, the official document goes
Categories.
deeper into each category as to what's allowed, what would be allowed.
Okay,
So there's a lot of options.
Okay.
A lot of stuff.
Ways you
there.
can do it. So
Yeah.
if you're reviewing, if you want to review that list before for the next meeting, we can kind of circle back on that. And then get something prepared. I think there's some ordinance updates coming. We could kind of pair that with that. There's a comp plan update, and hopeful, warrant article for that that's coming up this fall, late fall maybe. So we could pair that with one of those efforts if you want, or do it at a different meeting, but
Yeah.
we have a little bit of time.
The time, but
But this would have to go to a town meeting.
It would.
yeah, because I had to approve the expenditure. So, yeah. And, yeah, and I'll agree with the rest of the board. The suggestions, I mean, 12.5 seems like a lot of money, but once you get some communication infrastructure, then some safety and repairs, and so we're not gonna be able to spread it over like 19 different categories. It's gonna be, yeah. So, I think I'd be inclined to take some of those suggestions and where you put them in. So, okay.
Acquisition, construction, reconstruction, or installation of public work sites or other public purposes.
go.
So you can
Bingo.
get your cover. Your cover.
Yeah.
We can dive into that category a little deeper and see if we can.
Says, look, salary for the public health officer in here too. That's.
You talked to that guy yet?
I talked to his wife. I said, look, we're gonna get this going. So.
Daryl, you've been saying that for quite a few meetings now.
Dan found a good lead. I have another person who's actually also.
We're working that lead. I'm trying on my end. He's trying on
He
his
fixed his
end.
car,
So,
so
yeah,
then-
I know. I'm gonna
Yeah.
hold him to, yeah. Yeah, we'll get it sorted. So I told him all the glories of it and everything. So,
Mhm.
okay, cool. Yeah. All right. So nothing right now on that one. We'll get back and discuss. So, okay. And last but not least, we have a banking RFP, right?
Still on my list to get out.
Yep.
I had pretty well drafted one. Dan was nice to review it. This one is slightly different. I had a representative from one of the banks reach out when I was
Okay.
finishing up the other one. It said, "Hey, I just came across a really good proposal." And what they really liked is, that bid form that's at the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Just because, again, for our reviewers' sake, it's super easy. For the folks putting it together, it's
Oh, yeah.
really easy. They're not adverse to putting those binders together, but then you're going through them all and you're trying to pull out the same page and information, and this
Right.
just
Yeah, just have a good sheet.
summarizes
Yeah.
it really nicely.
Okay, nice.
That was good.
So I just bringing that for you to review, and I can get that out sooner rather than later at this point, because we've gotten,
So how many man hours are gonna be relieved with, they take it on?
none.
None?
All we're doing is trying to put out an RFP to,
No, I'm talking about if the bank takes on all the functions. I mean, they must be doing some oversight now, right?
I don't think, this won't relieve us of any oversight that we do internally on our banking.
Okay.
This is large.
This is just moving the accounts.
This is largely to just see what the rates would be, but it does provide them the opportunity to make sure we're clear on, are there extra costs with a certain, the only thing that's on here that we don't currently utilize as an option is the remote deposit
Deposit
capture, which we don't have to do so long as the bank is in town, because it's easier to
Yeah,
just
but it
drop it off.
Right.
Would
we
increase
save-
more.
We
Yeah.
save Cheryl a trip downtown.
Well, we still got to go and do deposit for the cash.
Oh.
So it might eliminate some of those, but it also increases time internally for us to run all the checks.
Yeah, put them all in and
Do
enter
jam
them in.
and-
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
do have to create, so in our situation, because there are so many banks in town, I'm assuming we'll likely end up selecting one from town. If not, that would certainly be an option. If we find that the best rate coming back to us is one that's not here.
Right.
I would suggest that we do utilize that, but
Well, you'd probably want to support one of the banks in town anyways. You at least have a preference for
We
it.
hope they want support out.
Yeah.
There was-
Rates are right.
There was one
Yeah.
other thing that they're offering that I do feel, it's not new, but I think, it'd be new to us. And it's strongly recommended, is to put in, I forget, term it uses. But basically it scans the check, it scans our warrant. And so the bank knows what our check's supposed to be cashed for. When a check goes in, it gets scanned, we can see that it was taken from our account, but the bank doesn't know what the amount's supposed to be. And people are getting very creative right now with being able to take a check and retype an amount.
Mhm.
It's already been signed. And so it just creates that extra security and checkpoint on that end, and it's like a double.
Mhm.
They have a
okay.
format, you have to
Yeah.
give them electronic format for
I
that?
believe, I don't know if it was an automatic, or how we upload that to them, but that would be a service that we're asking them to kind of outline for us.
Yeah, this is a nice format with the proposal forms on. Okay.
If anything jumps out at, we got a couple of former bankers here, so if anything jumps out at you, let me know.
I'll be honest, I didn't go. through
And
that.
aside from changing some of those dates on there, I think I can go with the numbers from that we presented in there. We're not through calendar year 24. We don't have. I think I can just use those numbers. We're still largely the same. Um,
All right.
So yeah, if there's a glaring issue or question before we post it, if I can post that. Thought I'd do it quite a while ago and I didn't, but I'd like to get it out soon at this point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Before.
I'm fine. I'll just,
Continue
we've got a
to
couple of
change.
bankers here if they have any.
Well, hey, I'll look at it and get back to you this
Yeah.
weekend.
Looks good to me. Oh. All right. Almost the end here, I think. Yeah. Well, if there's no more additions there, we can,
Michael,
amongst-
did you want to say anything?
But, no, and I wanted to hear that conversation.
Forgot to put that in the update.
Okay,
Left.
do
Our
you
code
want an update? You want to go back to? Yeah.
Part of the board discussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our code enforcement officer had let me know, last Monday that he'd be resigning in 2 weeks, which, would be this coming Monday. He had an opportunity presented to him that he couldn't pass up for multiple reasons. And so Michael was out on vacation last week when I'd gotten the notice, and I didn't bother him with that, even though he may have found out. And so we're just gonna circle back this week before the week's over and figure out getting an ad out. I mean, it's still pretty. It hasn't changed since we put it out a year and a half ago. So it's just a matter of us working internally to figure out in the interim, what do we do?
Do we have a deputy right now?
We do not.
I did, okay, I didn't think we did. I know in the past we've had a deputy,
Yeah.
but.
So he is willing to help with the plumbing. That one's a little trickier. He can help for a little bit with the plumbing stuff. It's less frequent and less of a need. The frequency of going out into the field is very different than the code stuff. So he can help us a little bit still with that side of it. I think I've used up my 6-month interim allowance on the plumbing when I was in Vinyl Haven. So they give you 6 months for plumbing before you need to get
Oh, that's
certified.
on an island.
And then code enforcement's 12 months to be certified. So we'll hustle to figure out how to get a permanent fix back. But that did happen. Of course, working with Kevin to just time it with Newcastle's posting and just maybe try and attract the same person again. But
Right,
we
yeah.
do have 2 different processes and 2 fairly different ordinances. And so it doesn't really matter if it's the same or not. And every town's gonna be a little bit different, so there's no real benefit. There's no way with this year's budget, we're gonna be able to even consider combining that as a shared position. We're both at 20 hours already budgeted, and we don't have the budget to consider the benefit package if it was a full-time shared
Right.
position. So
Okay.
at this moment, we're gonna proceed as if it was a part-time,
It's still
20-hour
part-time
week.
and they're.
Which is why we keep losing people, right? I mean, we keep,
It's part of it. It's
There's
part of
always
it.
been a turnover.
Yep.
Yeah.
but
It's a
it's not,
challenging.
but not everyone has this
Who's
problem.
Newcastle?
Yes, they do. A lot of them do.
Oh, same.
And-
Oh, So you talking to Kevin?
Yeah.
South Bristol.
Wiscasset.
Yeah, that's right. So Bristol is, yeah, right.
Well, I'm assuming it's because people don't pay enough to keep people want the job.
It's
It's a tricky thing.
yeah, I mean, depends how you define your boundaries as a code officer and you're meeting your contractor's needs and property owner's needs. But George, makes himself available at least 6 days a week, sometimes 7, depending on the time of year. And that's a lot. And so I think, we need to work with, going forward with both the employee and the community, the contracting community to kind of just define what that availability is and try and make sure there's a good balance for that individual.
Right, yeah.
He worked within the 20-hour allowance and often was actually less than 20 hours, but it wasn't all here, right? In the office, it was, I don't know, it was 50-50, but it's in the field a lot. and
Loading days, be.
You're moving a lot to inspect things, so. I think that it's an opportunity, at least for us to think about, internal structures and systems. And Michael's talked about trying to make sure that for our sake and whoever's coming in to get a permit, that we're trying to make it easy to understand and apply and to kind of try and make it an efficient timeline to get things approved and move forward. So in the interim, I think until the next meeting anyways, we'll just have things work with folks. Not prepared now to suggest or recommend an interim.
Right, well, yeah.
Not volunteering he at this moment, and I'm not recommending I right now, but it may be if we don't find someone before next meeting that would be the recommendation, is that we both could become interim deputy kind of,
Oh my
so that
God,
someone
Andy, you
so that
can't
someone
take on
can
Another job.
we can't as a
Can't-
community not have
Can't not
permits
have
to
it.
do and so that is what it is, and we'll figure it out. But we can't stop that process for the community.
No, we can't. No, I understand.
But
No, I just, yeah, you guys.
we need some
we'll get
time
on
to-
it and-
The two of you are already stretched out as it is.
we need some time to digest and figure out what's best going.
Yeah.
In the interim and then longer term. So
Right. Yeah, just keep us in the loop. What else we can do, so.
Well, is it a very high, code enforcement officers? What is what do you have to do to be one?
Changes to electricity and
No, I mean,
plumbing.
Well, we-
what is the education? Is it like a highly educated position?
well,
People don't want to do it.
let me just say the requirement of the state to be, I'm not going to get into I wouldn't get into the, skilled in what you're asking per se, but the state does require, if you're going to be a certified code officer.
Yeah.
I think you would call it the other day, it was a legal training.
Level of code. Legal, land use and shoreline zoning. There's those three certain.
Okay.
Plumbing, internal, subsurface, those, and then we don't have to deal with this yet, but at some point we will move back to like the building code
Mhm.
stuff, the electrical.
Right.
Everything, so.
We only do plumbing now. We don't do electrical.
We do, yeah, we do plumbing, I mean, we do plumbing, we don't do electrical. we
Okay.
don't do structural or- City.
And who tells us what we have to have for those levels?
The state has a certification.
The state tells your town, you have to do plumbing and electric versus. just
Everyone has to
plumbing.
do plumbing,
you can
internal
check.
stuff, building and electric codes, MUBEC as they refer to it, means Uniform Building and Electrical Code. Towns over 4,000 people, I believe, have been required for quite a while.
Okay,
The small towns across the state did push on that a bit at legislature because I mean, can you imagine most of the towns in the state are under 4,000, I believe. So, it was the onus on the communities was, that was the challenge, kind of what we're talking about with the fire in a way is a town that's going to put out 50 applications a year has to go get someone trained to be back inspections. And so that's been the challenge. So where it stands today, every building project must meet the MUBEC standard. But towns of our size aren't required to actively enforce it. So there's this weird gray area for now still at this point. And, I've talked before with Michael and George, I think I'd rather see us not wait for that legislative decision to say, oh, you do have to do it now.
Mhm.
I think it's coming eventually. We're pretty well
They'll
there.
probably push it down.
But to
down
do it
through.
more on our terms, so say 2 or 3 years from now, we should be prepared to bring someone in to
Yeah,
do
But you're
to
looking
do
at
that
a
potentially.
a full-time position with benefits and.
Probably.
Yeah, oh yeah, and then
Mhm.
training to go with it and.
The alternative
And
would
then
be to
all those
do-
communities are gonna be looking for people at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if they don't put out training programs to do this, then we won't have the
Right.
people anyway.
Right now, we'd be looking for 2 positions instead of 1, so, yeah.
Do you know if it's been a while since I looked at the certification for code? Is that all self-paced now? Did you?
I believe so.
I know they were moving there. So those ones for code, those 3 for code, I think you can do at your pace online, which is very helpful.
Right.
Time wise.
Yeah.
Anything that Damariscotta needs, like the MoveX stuff, I think that might not be, you might have to like sit for.
A little more technical.
Okay, the other ones I believe you can do. The trainings online and the testing. I
Yeah.
think, are online.
I know the plumbing, subsurface and internal, there is in-person components to that still.
So short term, we need to get somebody into, and then long term, we gotta prepare for the broader specs.
Yeah.
But
So aren't these candidates typically retired contractors?
It can be.
But isn't that the typical source?
Um,
Because they want to work part-time, they don't want to work full-time.
it can be, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the community and what they're
Well, we didn't
requesting.
Identify those people that are retiring out of contracting jobs locally, but if you could, there'd be potential candidates.
Yeah.
Certainly for the, like the move back to technical, like the plumbing. People who were plumbers or electricians are gonna be familiar with all of that.
Yeah.
The other, the like. The more basic, like the legal, the land use, shoreline stuff is. That's more like regulatory. It's a. There's more like paperwork involved than knowing like the how to wire.
Yeah.
House.
Yeah, you're digging into ordinances and yeah, regulations at that point.
Yeah, we were talking today about, for kind of that, not the long term for, the move back, jumping onto that, but just acknowledging that the position of a CEO, whatever percentage it ends up breaking down as, the administrative portion of that job can be challenging, and you might be good at the administrative part, but
Right.
don't have the technical understanding perhaps without training to
Mhm.
dive in and work with the contractors directly. So, maybe there's something in there that we work with, again, not in the next month or so, but to understand within the next month, but, maybe make some recommendations on if there's anywhere in our ordinance that say the CEO must approve, just to think about, is there a reason to think that we separate or make the language such that the planner could also do it? Because, some of the ordinances might just say it has to be this.
Right, yeah.
And so just helping us a little bit that way, but, could that task of inspections and the technical aspect of it be separate from the administrative piece?
Mhm.
Is there a way to streamline the application so that they don't need to go through, I'll say such a review, but I mean, it makes the review process a little easier
Yeah,
to
you spread it
work
between
through.
two facets, so, yeah.
The CEO position itself, even before MoveX starts coming. Has been expanding because there's been more development. The reviews are more technical, but just the whole position is growing. For all the meters.
Yeah.
I think that. It wouldn't be that long, even without MoveX, when you're starting to look at like 30, 40 hours a week for. Just to get everything done, because of all the applications that come in, and anything needs to be checked. So.
So,
A lot to it.
how much notice did he give?
2 weeks.
So what happens after 2 weeks if we don't have anybody?
Well, at our next meeting, we'll see where we stand.
And then we have to
Probably
appoint
propose
it.
deputies, I'm guessing at that point. And continue to try and get that filled. Last time this happened, we had someone in, I think the same day the notice went out that I found out it wasn't gonna,
Kinda,
George happened to come in, you're looking for a code officer. I'm like,
Yeah.
how'd you hear that so fast?
Yeah.
And he started within a week or so.
optimistic, yeah, the same thing.
So, you never know, but I know it's a tough one generally to try and get filled.
Right. I mean, you
Keep
don't
us in the loop.
hear about it as it being a career opportunity.
Right.
It falls, your point, Tom, it tends to be part-time, so it attracts retirees because it's hard to be like, yeah, I'll work 20 hours a week and that's it. You
Right.
gotta kind of cobble several together.
And with all the small communities, that is what it tends to be.
And all that different land use ordinance.
Yeah.
So it
Complicated.
becomes a lot bigger
Yeah.
headache than maybe.
Yeah.
we perceive.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll get something in there, so. All right.
Take that on too.
No,
Mr.
I'm not.
Health and Health Officer.
No, I am not. I don't know if I'm less qualified to be that or the health officer. I don't know, Josh. What do you think?
Yeah, no comment.
He'll tell me later. All right. Well, let's, yeah, we can move on here. Does anybody start with Tom? Anything to add tonight for?
Well,
Discussion?
If anybody else has been looking at the weather report, but I'm still concerned about the hurricane coming this way. Yesterday they were talking about
Really?
potential 4 to 6 inches up here of rain.
Oh, I hadn't seen that. Yeah.
I just had that
But I
one.
think-
Yeah. I seen that. Wow.
The radar
Heard
just said
anything
it.
that
I
is-
just read it.
Wow. You're holding it upside down, Tom.
I've heard like inch or something where.
Yeah.
I heard an inch.
Initially,
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about it yesterday, but anyway,
haven't
it may
heard
be
any
going
wind.
offshore, but
Well,
it may not.
Tom's point is just keep an eye on the weather
Keep an eye on it.
and batten down the hatches and make sure the
Yeah.
cabinets are stocked. So
Okay.
anyway, so yeah. Dan, anything?
I just, I tell you, a day doesn't go by when somebody doesn't ask me about the parking lot, so. I'm just-
Wait, you too?
Yes, I'll be walking down the
You're
street.
out there. Well, yeah, that's because you walk down the street every
Well,
day.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
guess.
for trouble.
Just see that, keep them in the loop and.
Yeah, so
What
there's
are
a-
the-
there's a great deal of interest. So-
Are there consistent questions that they're feeling they don't have the answer to that they're asking about? That
No,
we can make
just
sure
in
we can.
general.
I think they're just incredibly curious about it, so.
Where am I gonna park? What's
Yeah,
gonna
where am I
happen?
gonna park?
Yeah.
When is it starting?
Yeah.
When does it start? And
So.
Do
So-
have, I'm finalizing the details of the alternate parking stuff, trying to order signs, making sure what I put on those are accurate for, I talked to him, I gotta talk to him, I called him yesterday, but I gotta follow back up with him at the church in Newcastle. I want to get like probably a sandwich board, it's probably the easiest thing to get out in front of their opening, with a couple other public like parking signs, so I do have an order with one of the companies to just get things. Yeah, I want to make sure I'm right on the language that I'm using, in some of them. The banks are another one, making sure that the signage is reflective of, I think they'll generally take care of the employee parking spots, noticing, but like making sure that, at the first, if we're able to utilize part of that as tenant and employee parking, making sure the signs are,
Mhm.
saying the right thing. And so close on that, should be able to order those by the end of the week and get those in. I do have kind of a map made up that I shared with the committee last week. So trying to get all that on the website, hopefully this week or weekend. But kind of pulling all that together to put up and get the webpage updated. Because I think the website now for waterfront committee or project still shows the boardwalk and something very different than what we're
Yes.
doing now. So if I can just use that same page and just put the new information there and kind of
Yeah. I
Put all
think-
the
I
old
think
stuff
Any
in it.
information, getting out there would be great.
So you're still talking about nighttime activities?
No.
So stuff's in the works.
Yeah, we're trying to get the company to come in with their surveyor to kind of help mark out on the ground where some of the structures, or the extent of what they're gonna need to do is so we can better visualize. There's a couple outstanding questions with a couple businesses just to make sure that we are there. So it's still coming into focus, if you will.
Yeah. Do you think that messaging service that we just signed up for would be helpful?
It'll be helpful and it'll be available.
Yeah.
We just met with them today and they were ready for us to launch next Friday. There's still a few things that we need to provide for them.
Okay.
Well, we're all getting the thing to sign up for the app and.
Yeah, so I sent that out Monday to get people internally signed up for the app so we had a chance to test a message,
Yeah.
get people in it.
Mhm.
What you don't find in the app right now is the public sign up pieces. Like if we want to make sure that the public can sign up for emergency notices will be a default.
Oh, okay.
If you're a dog owner, there's notices for dogs. So we're still building that list out.
Mhm.
And so we pushed it off a week and so it'll still be prior to the project. But at this moment, we're anticipating whatever that last Friday is their launch of that system.
Mhm.
So we'll be able to utilize that and we're already talking about how to get the word out and get people to sign up. and push that. And so the parking lot project is an opportunity to capture some people
Yeah.
to sign up. Jason was already talking about, there's an event coming up next week for like a back to school backpack giveaway. He's like, oh, we can put them in the backpacks. I was like, well, we're not gonna be ready by, so, but like trunk or treat, another opportunity to
Yep.
get messages,
Yeah.
get the opportunity out for people to sign up. If we can come up
Yeah.
with like a flyer or a business card with a QR code, we can get it out. So, it's been good to work with some of the folks that'll be involved using that here. So.
It'll be a good system. So,
Yeah.
great, okay.
Thank God they put-
Andrea, any discussion items this evening?
So, my first one is, do you need help in the polls? Should we be like volunteering?
That's a good question. I can ask Becky. I know she's got a list of folks.
There's quite a long
Calls.
list right now.
Yeah, I'll.
So you think that she's okay?
If you'd like, maybe it'd just be easier, so I don't forget, if you want to call Becky.
Okay,
Reach out to her and
Just
email
reach
her.
out to her directly. If
Okay,
you're not
I'll
on
do
the
that.
list, you can get on her list if you're
Yeah.
interested in helping.
Didn't we
well, I
approve
just,
a list of
I just want to be,
clerks?
Yeah, she's,
Really?
Becky's good. If you, email her and.
is that okay?
No, that one, put that,
Does it go with it?
something Maine municipal.
Let's see,
That you found, did you sign it?
That's for their executive committee. Yeah. Is there time on that one still, I think, to go to the next
free to
meeting
sign in those two, so.
I didn't see anything to sign.
of August? Nothing to fill out on that one, sorry.
Josh, you have
No,
any,
not that. Oh, did you hear? So there, two things happened at the planning board,
What's that?
that there's changes with the nursing home.
Michael, do you have any updates from the planning board?
okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if, was it 7:30 now? I don't know if we want to go too deep into.
No, they're important.
The Clipper Ship project, is they came back with a scaled back.
It's like a 70 bed,
Yeah.
right? Something.
I think it was, I can't remember exactly what the numbers were, but it was basically 2/3 the size of what they were doing. Right now, they just presented concept plans, which we've got what their submission was to the state for DEP, because they have to update their DEP permits. So that's on my desk, and he wants to see those. It's available to the public as well. So they are going back with that. We haven't received like an official application. They said probably in October.
Okay.
So I mean, if you have questions, happy to, but that's kind of where that is.
And then I heard there was a change in that 32 unit that's going in. They're changing the age.
Yeah, they're still working at getting funding, the low income housing tax credit. Funding is what they've been trying to go through, and it's a competitive grant process, I guess, for the state. And it's more, they are combining that project, I can't remember if it was 32 or 24 units, but that building that's there, that they're proposing,
Mhm.
it's next to the existing Ledgewood Court.
Right.
It's all on the same property right now. I just spoke with the developer today. They may not, the original plan was to divide the property and build it kind of separately. They're gonna own and manage it still. So what they're doing, kind of expanding the project, so it's not just what they proposed, that 24, 36 units. They also are going to reinvest and rehab the existing Ledgewood Court. So it's not like they're expanding like the footprint or anything of the project, but what their application to the state is, it's expanding from a 24 or 36 unit building to that plus rehab, to make themselves more competitive. But in order to do that, because the existing Ledgewood Court is not age restricted, they would run afoul of fair housing non-discrimination laws if they had part of it was age restricted and part of it was not. So that's why they basically are saying, we're not gonna limit it to 55 plus. They're expecting that, still talking, that's what they're targeting,
Okay.
but
But that would open up more workforce housing for us.
it would, yeah. I mean, they're all still one bedrooms or, they're sort of smaller units, so you're probably not gonna get a lot of like, couples with kids and things, but
Right.
so that's why they're doing it. It's,
But we still have a lot of young people that don't have a place to live.
yeah, no, absolutely. We need
Just saying.
people that work and
Hey, right here.
Work
You
in
need a place.
Damariscotta. or elsewhere want to live here, so. The housing costs just keep.
Yeah.
Going up, so.
Well, I'm glad the project's back on the table anyway.
Me
so,
too.
Yeah.
You know,
Is it targeted just at a certain population now?
it's not, I think that's, when I say that, is what it was envisioned as, like, when they were developing this, how many units can we build and. You know, is there a population to fill, is a demand for it? I think they were, so. I think they are imagining it being 55 plus, but they just can't restrict it to that.
Okay,
So-
for funding.
For funding, yeah, and it's still gonna be, the affordable, the. Rent control
Mhm,
units,
that's great.
so. It's just not, you could be 54 and live there now.
Yeah.
Or 45.
And upgrading, so, and freshening up the existing.
Yeah,
It's a good thing, because it looks pretty tired in there, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and they've got a whole, because they're doing it through the state, they're gonna have to have a whole plan to make sure that nobody gets displaced, so. If they need to move anybody out to rehab the units, they have to like put them in a hotel and make sure that they're around, so they can do it back in, it's a whole.
That's quite
Gotcha.
complicated.
Yeah, logistics there, so.
I don't think, the only other thing I just want to mention is, at least have 3 changes to the land use ordinance. The planning board said, yeah, they want to go forward and have a public hearing, so, at the next planning board meeting, September 9th, that we're gonna review that, which. Being the select board, and eventually this is all gonna come to you, like, put it on your radar. It's you. Saying, no, we want to see it first before we schedule a public hearing, but, I can share that with you either way. So, changes to land use ordinance.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Josh?
Audit from whatever, 2 years ago.
We're still waiting on FY 23. My understanding is our part's done, but they're still waiting on being able to do the blended report and waiting on the school's numbers. But otherwise, our portion, town only, is gone through the auditor. We were assigned Kevin, and we just need the school to get the blended, so.
Do you know if it's the business office that's the hold up, or can we light a fire under them and get it done so we can figure out what we're doing here? Cause it's gone on long enough.
I'm not sure.
We used to have it, like, when I first started, we'd have it in like January, February before we started our budget process.
Yeah, I think it's out of our auditor's hands because they don't do the school's audit. They
Right.
just need the numbers from their auditor to be able to blend them into
Right, yeah.
a combined report.
So maybe we have to be a squeaky wheel then on,
Right.
on our side.
Especially if we're gonna have a meeting with them on August 20th and talk about moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can we can push
2
them
years
to,
ago, then they shouldn't move forward to 2025.
we can ask them to give us our town only. I mean, that should
Right.
be available, as long as they work through. I think when Cheryl last asked them about a month ago, it had gone from our auditor and Kevin to their finance team to put together. Like, he did his part and then they just compile it into the report that it is. So that was about a month ago. So I assume that part should at least be done. But we can ask them if they can get that to us at least.
Yeah, start with that and then, yeah.
They still use Brewer.
Yes.
I do know it's not uncommon these days to find towns and schools still waiting for towns
Yes.
for 22.
Yes.
Really?
But
It is longer than we're
Yes.
probably had in the last couple of years anyways.
Mhm.
Yeah, but then you start falling behind, it gets worse and worse.
Exactly.
Growing.
And we can't afford to do that.
especially if, it's on their office and they
Mhm.
see their budgets keep going up and
Yeah.
they're gonna refigure their structure and things get lost in the shuffle, so finish it up before you move on.
Fair enough.
I agree.
So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. Gotta add anything tonight? Said enough.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is that good enough?
Second.
Well, everybody fought for that second. Oh, that's just, I'll let Linda pick that one. I don't know if it was Tom or Andrea, but all those in favor? Okay, he's adjourned.